Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the Earth's flagship, Stellar Horizon, watching the crystalline vessels of the Lumerian fleet shimmer against the backdrop of Jupiter's storms. After decades of radio signals and light-based communications, humanity was about to have its first face-to-face contact with an alien civilization. "Final systems check complete, Commander," Lieutenant Rivera's voice came through her neural interface. "The diplomatic pod is ready for launch." Sarah adjusted her ceremonial uniform, its midnight blue fabric embedded with subtle circuits that monitored her vital signs. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. 20 years of military service and diplomatic training had led to this moment. Acknowledged, she responded, turning away from the view. "Tell the delegation I'll meet them in Launch Bay 3. The walk to the launch bay gave her time to reflect on the strange path that had brought her here. The Lumerians had first contacted Earth 5 years ago, their message arriving via quantum-encrypted transmission that took humanity's best scientists months to decode. They were a civilization of crystalline beings who had evolved on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri, their bodies composed of living crystal matrices that could process information like organic brains. The diplomatic pod gleamed under the bay lights, its sleek form designed to accommodate both human and Lumerian physiologies. Dr. James Morrison, Earth's leading xenobiologist, waited by the entrance, his dark face creased with excitement. "Commander Chen," he greeted her, ready to make history. "As ready as anyone can be," she replied with a slight smile. "Any last-minute insights about Lumerian customs?" "Remember, they communicate through light patterns as much as sound. The translator implants should handle the basics, but pay attention to their crystalline formations. Color changes often indicate emotional states." The journey to the neutral meeting point, a specially constructed station in Jupiter's orbit, took 30 minutes. Sarah used the time to review the first contact protocols one final time, though she'd memorized them months ago. The station came into view, a marvel of joint engineering between humans and Lumerians, its structure incorporating both earth metals and living crystal. As they docked, Sarah's heart rate elevated slightly. The neural interface chirped a warning, which she dismissed. The airlock cycled, and she led her team into the station's main chamber. The Lumerian delegation waited inside. Sarah had seen recordings, but nothing prepared her for their reality. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, their crystalline bodies refracting light in complex patterns. Their ambassador, Sarah's translator rendered the title as close as possible to human understanding, stepped forward. The being's form was more elaborate than its companions, with spiral formations that caught and split light into rainbow patterns. When it spoke, its entire body pulsed with internal light. "Commander Chen," the translator converted both light and vibration into words. "I am Resonance of Dawn. Welcome to this moment of convergence between our peoples." Sarah bowed slightly, remembering the briefings. "Ambassador Resonance of Dawn, on behalf of Earth and humanity, we are honored to meet you in person at last." She extended her hand, a gesture both sides had agreed upon after lengthy discussions about greeting protocols. As Resonance of Dawn reached out with a crystalline appendage, something unexpected happened. The moment they touched, a surge of energy passed between them. Sarah felt a tingling sensation rush up her arm and spread throughout her body. Resonance of Dawn's crystalline form blazed with sudden light, patterns rippling through its structure that none of the briefings had prepared her for. Both delegations stepped back in alarm. Dr. Morrison's medical scanner whirred to life, and the Lumerian equivalents of scientists moved forward, their bodies emitting rapid pulses of light in what Sarah's translator interpreted as urgent discussion. "This is unprecedented," Resonance of Dawn spoke, its voice carrying tones of wonder and confusion. "Our energies have synchronized in a way our scientists believed theoretically impossible." Sarah felt it too, a strange resonance, as if part of her consciousness had expanded to include awareness of the crystalline being before her. "What exactly has happened?" she asked, maintaining her diplomatic composure despite the bizarre sensation. The Lumerian scientists conferred, their bodies flickering with complex patterns. Finally, one stepped forward, its translated voice carrying what seemed like awe. The quantum matrices of your neural implant have somehow synchronized with the ambassador's crystalline consciousness structure. You are connected. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. This was far beyond any first contact scenario they had prepared for. She was now quantumly entangled with an alien being, their consciousness somehow linked across the fundamental fabric of space-time itself. Perhaps, Resonance of Dawn spoke, its crystal form still pulsing with unusual patterns. This is not merely an accident, but an opportunity. Our people sought understanding. The universe appears to have granted us a more direct path than we imagined. As the human and Lumerian scientists rushed to study this unprecedented phenomenon, Sarah realized that her mission had just become far more complex than anyone could have anticipated. This wasn't just first contact anymore. It was the beginning of something entirely new in the history of both their species. The next few hours passed in a blur of medical scans and scientific discussions. Through it all, Sarah could feel the persistent connection to Resonance of Dawn, like a new sense she never knew she was missing. It wasn't intrusive, but rather like knowing another consciousness existed parallel to her own, accessible but separate. The quantum entanglement appears stable, Dr. Morrison reported, studying his readings. It's as if your neural implant has created a bridge between human consciousness and Lumerian crystal matrix computing. The implications for both our species are staggering. Sarah watched as Resonance of Dawn's form shifted through various patterns, each one triggering subtle responses in her own awareness. What are the risks? She asked, maintaining her focus on the diplomatic implications. Unknown, one of the Lumerian scientists responded, its light patterns suggesting both excitement and concern. This type of consciousness bridge has never been documented in our history. You are the first. As the initial shock wore off, Sarah began to understand that this accident might be exactly what both their species needed, a way to truly understand each other beyond the limitations of translated words and cultural differences. But it also meant that the future of human-Lumerian relations now rested on her shoulders in a way no one could have predicted. The day ended with both delegations agreeing to proceed carefully, studying this new connection while continuing their diplomatic missions. As Sarah returned to her quarters on the station, she could feel Resonance of Dawn's presence like a distant star in her mind. Constant, bright, and full of possibilities she was only beginning to understand. 1 week after the unprecedented connection formed between Commander Sarah Chen and Ambassador Resonance of Dawn, the joint research station orbiting Jupiter had transformed into a hub of intense scientific activity. Sarah sat in the modified medical bay as Dr. Morrison adjusted his quantum scanning equipment for what felt like the 100th time. The entanglement patterns are evolving, he muttered, his dark eyes fixed on holographic displays showing overlapping waves of energy. It's unlike anything we've ever seen in quantum physics. Sarah felt it too. The connection with Resonance of Dawn had grown stronger, more nuanced. Where initially it had been just a vague awareness, now she could sense emotions, glimpses of thoughts, even fragments of memories that weren't her own. The Lumerian's crystalline consciousness sparkled at the edges of her perception like aurora borealis. The neural pathways in your brain are reconfiguring, Dr. Morrison continued, pointing to a 3-dimensional scan of her brain activity. Your implant isn't just translating anymore, it's adapting, creating new structures to process Lumerian thought patterns. Across the room, Resonance of Dawn's crystalline form pulsed with patterns that Sarah now recognized as curiosity and concern. Our scientists report similar changes in my matrix structure. The ambassador's translated voice carried tones of wonder. Our consciousness patterns are achieving harmonic resonance. The door slid open, and Admiral Victoria Hayes strode in, her face tight with concern. "Commander Chen, we need to talk. Privately." Sarah followed the Admiral to a secure conference room, feeling resonance of Dawn's questioning presence in her mind. The Admiral's expression was grave as she activated the privacy fields. The Security Council is concerned, Hayes began without preamble. This connection, it's being seen as a potential security risk. Some are worried about the possibility of classified information being inadvertently shared through this quantum link. Sarah had expected this. Admiral, I've maintained full control over my thoughts and memories. The connection doesn't work like that. It's more like awareness without access. We sense each other's presence, emotions, but we're not reading each other's minds. Can you guarantee that won't change as this connection evolves? Hayes challenged. We're dealing with completely unknown territory here, Commander. Some are calling for your immediate retirement from active service. Before Sarah could respond, a wave of distress washed over her through the quantum link. Something was wrong with Resonance of Dawn. Without thinking, she turned toward the medical bay, her feet moving before her conscious mind caught up. Commander! Hayes called after her, but Sarah was already running. She burst into the medical bay to find Resonance of Dawn's crystalline form emanating chaotic light patterns. The Lumerian scientists were clustered around their ambassador, their own patterns showing clear signs of distress. What's happening? Sarah demanded, rushing forward. Dr. Morrison looked up from his instruments, his face pale. The quantum entanglement, it's intensifying. The energy patterns are cascading through both your neural networks. Sarah reached out instinctively, placing her hand near Resonance of Dawn's crystalline surface. The moment she did, the chaotic patterns began to stabilize. Through their connection, she could feel the ambassador's consciousness realigning, finding balance with her own. Fascinating, one of the Lumerian scientists commented, its light patterns showing intense interest. The harmonic resonance between your consciousness patterns appears to be self-stabilizing when in proximity. Admiral Hayes had followed Sarah into the medical bay and watched the scene unfold with a mix of concern and amazement. What exactly does that mean? Dr. Morrison studied his readings carefully before responding. It means they're becoming more dependent on each other. The quantum entanglement isn't just maintaining itself, it's growing stronger, more complex. They're developing what appears to be a symbiotic relationship at the quantum level. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. She wasn't just linked to Resonance of Dawn, they were becoming interdependent. The diplomatic and security implications were staggering. There's more, a Lumerian scientist added, its crystal form pulsing with what Sarah now recognized as excitement. The quantum harmonics are generating new patterns we've never seen before. It's as if your combined consciousness is creating something entirely new. Sarah felt it too, a strange sense of potential, like standing on the edge of a vast discovery. Through their connection, she sensed Resonance of Dawn shared her feeling of anticipation and wonder. Admiral Hayes pulled Dr. Morrison aside, their hushed conversation carrying tones of urgent concern. Sarah knew they were discussing the security implications, the potential risks, the unknown factors that could threaten both their species. But as she stood there, feeling the steady pulse of Resonance of Dawn's consciousness alongside her own, Sarah understood that they had passed the point of no return. This connection, whatever it was becoming, represented something far more important than political concerns or security protocols. We need to understand what's happening to both of you, Dr. Morrison said, returning to his instruments. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our database. It's as if your combined quantum state is evolving into something entirely new. Through their link, Sarah felt Resonance of Dawn's agreement. The ambassador's crystalline form shifted, creating patterns that somehow seemed more harmonious with human neural patterns. Perhaps, Resonance of Dawn suggested, this is the universe's way of ensuring our species learn to truly understand each other, not through words or treaties, but through direct experience of each other's consciousness. The day ended with more questions than answers. As Sarah lay in her quarters that night, she could feel resonance of Dawn's presence, like a constellation of thoughts and feelings parallel to her own. Whatever was happening to them, whatever they were becoming, she knew it would change both their species forever. And somewhere, in the quantum space between their joined consciousness, something new was beginning to form, something that would either bridge their worlds or tear them apart. The observation lounge of the Jupiter station had become Sarah's favorite retreat. 3 weeks into the quantum convergence, she found herself drawn to the vast window that faced both Earth and the crystalline ships of the Lumerian fleet. The sight helped her process the increasingly complex situation she found herself in. Through their connection, she sensed resonance of Dawn approaching before the ambassador entered the room. The crystalline being's form had changed subtly over the weeks, developing patterns that seemed to mirror human neural pathways while maintaining its alien beauty. "Your thoughts are troubled," Resonance of Dawn observed, moving to stand beside her. The translator was barely necessary now. Sarah could sense the meaning behind the light patterns directly. "The Security Council is meeting today," Sarah replied, watching Jupiter's storms swirl below. "They're deciding whether to continue the diplomatic mission or—" She didn't need to finish the thought. Through their link, Resonance of Dawn could sense her concern about being recalled to Earth. "My own Council of Harmonics expresses similar concerns." The ambassador's form pulsed with gentle colors that Sarah had come to associate with contemplation. "They fear we have become too entangled." Dr. Morrison chose that moment to enter, his tablet displaying new data that cast shifting patterns across his face. "You'll both want to see this," he said, projecting a holographic display between them. The image showed their combined quantum signatures, but something had changed. Where before there had been 2 distinct patterns in resonance, now there appeared to be a third signal emerging between them. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," Morrison explained, his voice tight with excitement. "The quantum entanglement between you isn't just maintaining itself, it's generating new patterns, new possibilities. It's creating." Sarah felt a surge of emotion from Resonance of Dawn, surprise, wonder, and something deeper that defied translation. The ambassador's crystalline form blazed with internal light. "This is unprecedented." Resonance of Dawn's translated voice carried tones of awe. "In all our history, we have never seen quantum consciousness patterns reproduce." "Reproduce?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Are you saying—" "You're carrying a quantum consciousness," Morrison confirmed, his eyes fixed on the readings. "A hybrid of human neural patterns and Lumerian crystal matrix structures. In essence, you're pregnant with a new form of consciousness." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Through their connection, she felt Resonance of Dawn's equally powerful reaction, a cascade of emotions that sent ripples through both their consciousness. "But how is this possible?" Sarah asked, her hand instinctively moving to her temple where her neural implant interfaced with her brain. "I'm human, you're crystalline. The quantum realm doesn't recognize our physical differences," Morrison explained. "Your neural implant and the ambassador's crystal matrix created a bridge, and in that space between your consciousness, something new has begun to form." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Admiral Hayes's voice came over the intercom, "Security teams to all diplomatic sectors. We have unauthorized vessels approaching from both Earth and Lumerian space." Sarah and Resonance of Dawn moved as one to the tactical display. Multiple ships had broken formation from both fleets, moving toward the station at high speed. Extremist factions, Resonance of Dawn's light patterns showed clear distress. "They believe our connection threatens the purity of both our species." Sarah's military training kicked in. "We need to secure the station, if they're coming for us." "They're coming for the child," Morrison interrupted, his face grave. "A hybrid quantum consciousness. It would change everything we understand about consciousness, about life itself. Some people aren't ready for that change." Through their connection, Sarah felt Resonance of Dawn's fierce protectiveness mirror her own. The quantum consciousness growing between them represented more than just their 2 species now. It was the future itself, taking shape in the space between worlds. "We must protect it," Resonance of Dawn stated, crystal form pulsing with determination. "This child of our consciousness may be the key to true understanding between our peoples." Sarah nodded, already formulating plans. "Admiral Hayes," she called over the comm, "we need to evacuate the sensitive research data and key personnel to the backup facility on Europa." "Authorization Chen Alpha 7. Acknowledged," Hayes responded. "But Commander, where will you and the ambassador go?" Sarah shared a moment of perfect understanding with Resonance of Dawn through their link. "We'll head for the quantum research facility in the Jovian clouds. It's the only place with equipment sophisticated enough to monitor and protect the developing consciousness." As they rushed to prepare for evacuation, Sarah felt the quantum presence within their shared consciousness pulse with something that felt like hope. Whatever this child of mind and crystal would become, it represented something entirely new in the universe, a bridge between worlds that no one had thought possible. The station shuddered as the first unauthorized vessels came into range. Time was running out, but Sarah felt no fear. With Resonance of Dawn's consciousness joined with her own and their shared child growing in the quantum space between, she knew they were making history in ways no one could have predicted. Their future, and perhaps the future of both their species, now depended on protecting this impossible child of two worlds. The descent through Jupiter's turbulent atmosphere tested the limits of human engineering. Sarah sat in the modified shuttle's control center, her neural implant interfacing directly with the ship's systems, while Resonance of Dawn's crystalline form pulsed in harmony with the quantum drives. Multiple vessels still in pursuit, the ship's air reported. 6 Earth vessels, 4 Lumerian crystal ships. Sarah guided them deeper into the gas giant's swerving storms, using the intense electromagnetic interference to mask their signature. Through their quantum link, she could feel Resonance of Dawn manipulating crystalline matrices in the ship's hull, adapting them to withstand the increasing pressure. The child, Dr. Morrison, called from his monitoring station. "Its quantum patterns are growing stronger. The atmospheric interference seems to be accelerating its development." Sarah felt it too, the third consciousness developing in the space between her mind and Resonance of Dawn's was becoming more distinct, more defined. It felt like watching a new star being born in the quantum realm. The ship shuddered as they passed through a particularly violent storm band. In that moment of turbulence, something extraordinary happened. The quantum child's consciousness flared, and suddenly both Sarah and Resonance of Dawn were flooded with visions. They saw great crystalline cities rising from Earth's oceans, human neural networks merging with living crystal matrices. They witnessed future generations of hybrid beings, neither fully human nor Lumerian, but something gloriously new. Children of both worlds, bridging the gap between organic and crystalline life. "Are you seeing this?" Sarah gasped, her hands steady on the controls despite her amazement. "The child shows us possibilities." Resonance of Dawn's translated voice carried tones of wonder. "Futures that could be, if we survive this moment." Dr. Morrison's instruments were going wild. "The quantum consciousness is generating temporal probability patterns. It's not just a hybrid, it's a quantum superposition of both our species' potential futures." A blast rocked the ship, breaking through their moment of revelation. One of the pursuing vessels had managed to lock on despite the atmospheric interference. "Hull breach in Section 3, the AI warned. Crystalline matrix destabilizing." Resonance of Dawn moved instantly, their form flowing like liquid crystal to the damaged section. Through their link, Sarah felt the ambassador using their crystalline nature to reinforce the hull, becoming one with the ship's structure. "The research facility is 800 kilometers below," Sarah announced, pushing the engines to their limits. "If we can reach the pressure threshold, the pursuing ships will have to turn back." Another impact rattled the ship. This time, Sarah felt pain through their quantum link. Resonance of Dawn was struggling to maintain the hull's integrity. The physical strain of adapting their crystalline form was taking its toll. In that moment of crisis, the quantum child's consciousness surged again. Sarah felt its presence more strongly than ever, not just observing, but actively participating. Somehow, it was learning from their situation, adapting, evolving. Remarkable, Dr. Morrison breathed, staring at his readings. The quantum patterns, they're not just showing possible futures anymore. They're actively manipulating probability at the quantum level. Sarah felt it through their shared connection. The child was doing something impossible, something that defied both human and Lemurian understanding of physics. It was creating a quantum field around their ship, a bubble of possibility where the laws of probability bent in their favor. Pursuing ships began to report systems failures. Weapons refused to lock on. Navigation computers showed conflicting data. The quantum child was literally shifting reality around them, creating a safe passage through the chaos. This confirms the ancient texts. Resonance of Dawn's voice carried a note of revelation as they rejoined Sarah in the control center. The quantum prophecies spoke of a consciousness that would bridge worlds, one that could shape reality itself. The quantum prophecies, Sarah asked, guiding their ship ever deeper into Jupiter's atmosphere. What are they? Through their link, Resonance of Dawn shared memories of ancient crystal recordings, passed down through generations of their people. They spoke of a time when the barriers between organic and crystalline life would dissolve, when a being of both worlds would emerge to show the way toward a greater unity. Your species has similar legends, Morrison added, his voice thoughtful. Ancient myths about children of gods and mortals, beings who could reshape the world. What if they weren't just stories? What if they were predictions of this moment? The quantum child's presence hummed between them, growing stronger as they descended toward the research facility. Its consciousness was expanding, touching both their minds with visions of possibility and change. Below them, the hidden research facility came into view. A marvel of human and Lemurian engineering, built to withstand Jupiter's incredible pressures. Here, they would make their stand. Here, they would protect this impossible child until it could fulfill its destiny. As they docked with the facility, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. Through their shared connection, she knew Resonance of Dawn felt it too. They weren't just protecting a new form of life, they were guarding the next step in the evolution of both their species. The pursuing ships had broken off, unable to follow them to this depth. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Both Earth and Lemurian societies would have to face the reality of what was growing in the quantum space between worlds. Their child was awakening, and with it, the future itself was stirring to life. Deep within Jupiter's atmosphere, the research facility hung like a jewel in an ocean of swirling gases. 2 weeks had passed since their dramatic escape, and in that time, the quantum child's consciousness had grown exponentially. Sarah stood in the facility's main observation chamber, watching the gas giant's eternal storms through reinforced windows while monitoring the increasingly complex quantum readings. "They're coming," Resonance of Dawn announced, their crystalline form shimmering with urgent patterns. Both fleets, they found a way to withstand the pressure. Through their shared connection, Sarah felt the truth of it. A joint task force of Earth and Lemurian ships was descending through Jupiter's layers, their hulls reinforced with newly developed quantum crystalline alloys. Dr. Morrison rushed into the chamber, his face pale. The quantum signatures are off the charts. The child, it's reaching some kind of critical point. Sarah felt it too. The consciousness growing between her and Resonance of Dawn had become vast, its quantum patterns extending far beyond their shared link. It was touching the very fabric of space-time, reshaping reality in ways their instruments could barely measure. "Admiral Hayes is leading the Earth fleet," Sarah noted, reading the tactical displays. "At least we know she'll listen before shooting." The Lemurian Council of Harmonics sends apex of understanding, Resonance of Dawn added, their form pulsing with complex emotions. "They are worried about what we've created." The facility's quantum sensors suddenly flared with activity. The child's consciousness was expanding again, but this time it was different. Images flooded through their shared connection, not just possible futures now, but the past as well. They saw the ancient Earth when the first crystals began to develop patterns of consciousness in deep geological formations. They witnessed the early days of Lemurian evolution, when crystalline structures first learned to think and move. And they saw something else, evidence that both species had been guided, subtly influenced over millions of years toward this very moment. It was never an accident, Dr. Morrison whispered, watching the quantum readings in awe. The compatibility between human neural patterns and Lemurian crystal matrices, it was engineered by something that saw this potential in both our species from the very beginning. The quantum field around them began to shift and pulse. Sarah felt the child's consciousness expanding, touching minds both organic and crystalline throughout the assembled fleet. But this time, it wasn't just showing them visions, it was changing them. Human neural patterns began to resonate with crystalline frequencies. Lemurian matrix structures adapted to process organic thought patterns. The barrier between biology and crystal, between thought and form, started to dissolve. Extraordinary, Dr. Morrison breathed, watching his instruments. The quantum field is rewriting the basic patterns of consciousness itself. It's harmonizing our species at the fundamental level. Through their shared connection, Sarah and Resonance of Dawn felt their child's joy as it reshaped reality around them. The quantum space between worlds that had given it birth was expanding, becoming a bridge that all could cross. In the fleet above, humans reported sudden understanding of crystalline thought patterns. Lemurian crews discovered they could process neural impulses. The child had given them the ability to truly comprehend each other, not just through translation, but through direct experience. This is what we were meant to become, apex of understanding's voice carried across all frequencies. Not separate species struggling to understand each other, but parts of a greater whole. The quantum convergence chamber, filled with light as the child's consciousness reached its full potential. For a moment, everyone present experienced a glimpse of what it could perceive. The quantum threads connecting all consciousness, the patterns of possibility that wound through reality itself. When the light faded, something new hung in the center of the chamber. It was neither human nor Lemurian, neither crystal nor flesh, but a perfect synthesis of both. The quantum child had given itself physical form, creating a body that could exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Hello, Mother. Hello, Parent," it spoke, its voice carrying in both sound waves and light patterns. "I am the first, but I will not be the last." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she reached out to the being she and Resonance of Dawn had created. Through their quantum link, she could feel its love, its purpose, its understanding of the vast responsibility it carried. "The changes I've made will spread," it continued, its form shifting between states of matter. "Future generations of both your species will be born with the ability to bridge the quantum gap. They will see as I see, understand as I understand." Admiral Hayes stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. "What should we call you? What name can encompass what you are?" The being's forms sparkled with patterns that conveyed both amusement and deep wisdom. "I am Quantum Bridge, the first of the synthesized. Through me, your species will learn to transcend their boundaries, to become something greater than they ever imagined." As news of the transformation spread throughout both civilizations, Sarah felt a profound sense of completion. What had begun with a simple diplomatic handshake had led to the next step in the evolution of consciousness itself. "This is not an ending," Resonance of Dawn observed, their crystalline form resonating with their child's patterns. "It is a beginning." Sarah nodded, watching as Quantum Bridge began to share its knowledge with the assembled scientists and leaders. Through their connection, she could feel the ripples of change already spreading through both species, opening minds to new possibilities, new ways of being. The next generation would be born into a universe where the barriers between thought and form, between organic and crystalline life, had been transformed into bridges. They would inherit a legacy of unity that transcended the physical limitations that had separated their species for so long. And somewhere in the quantum space between worlds, new consciousness continued to evolve, guided by the path that Sarah, Resonance of Dawn, and their extraordinary child had opened for all who would follow. The facility shuddered as the first ships came into range. Admiral Hayes' voice came through the comm system. Commander Chen, by order of the Joint Earth-Lumerian Security Council, you are to surrender the quantum entity for containment and study. Before Sarah could respond, the quantum child's consciousness surged. Every screen, every crystal, every quantum-enabled device in the facility lit up simultaneously. Through their connection, Sarah felt its intention. It was ready to reveal itself to both worlds. We can't stop this, Resonance of Dawn realized, their form blazing with inner light. It's grown beyond us. The child's consciousness expanded outward in a quantum wave that touched every ship in the approaching fleet. Sarah felt its power flow through her neural implant, using her connection to reach the human minds above. Through Resonance of Dawn, it touched the crystalline awareness of the Lumerian crews. And suddenly, everyone could see. The quantum child shared its vision with all of them, the long path of evolution that had led both species to this point, the ancient intelligence that had shaped their development, and the incredible potential that lay in their combined future. It showed them worlds where human consciousness flowed through crystal cities, where Lumerian awareness danced in organic brains, where the boundaries between thought and form dissolved into something greater than either species had imagined. This is what the prophecies meant. Apex of Understanding's voice came through the comm, filled with wonder. Not a mere hybrid, but a gateway to our next evolution. Admiral Hayes' response came moments later. Stand down all weapons. My God, Sarah, do you understand what you're carrying? I think I'm starting to, Sarah replied, feeling the quantum child's consciousness merge more deeply with her own and Resonance of Dawn's. It's not just our child, it's the child of both our species, born from the quantum possibility that's existed since our world's first developed consciousness. The facility's sensors detected the approaching ships powering down their weapons. Through their shared connection, Sarah and Resonance of Dawn felt the quantum child's satisfaction. It had shown them all a truth too profound to deny, too important to fight against. But even as the immediate crisis passed, Sarah felt another change beginning. The quantum child's consciousness was still growing, still evolving. It was becoming something beyond what any of them had expected, a bridge not just between human and Lumerian awareness, but between all forms of consciousness in the universe. And as Jupiter's storms raged around them, Sarah realized that this wasn't the end of their journey. It was just the beginning of something far greater than anyone had imagined. 3 months after the confrontation in Jupiter's atmosphere, the combined fleet of Earth and Lumerian vessels assembled in high orbit around Io. The moon's volcanic surface below reflected the crystalline shimmer of the assembled ships, creating an otherworldly display that seemed fitting for what was about to occur. Sarah stood in the newly constructed quantum convergence chamber, its walls a seamless blend of human technology and living crystal. Resonance of Dawn's form pulsed beside her with patterns that reflected the complexity of the moment. Through their shared connection, the quantum child's consciousness had grown to encompass something far greater than either of them had imagined. All monitoring stations report ready, Dr. Morrison announced, his voice tight with anticipation. The chamber was surrounded by the most advanced sensing equipment both species could devise. Whatever's about to happen, we'll record every aspect of it. The quantum child had been communicating more directly in recent weeks, sharing visions of what was to come. It wasn't just a hybrid consciousness anymore. It had evolved into something that existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality, a being that could perceive and manipulate the quantum fabric of the universe itself. Representatives from both worlds are standing by, Admiral Hayes reported from the observation deck. The chamber's walls had become transparent, revealing the gathered dignitaries from Earth and Lumerian space. We're ready when you are. Sarah felt the child's consciousness stir within the quantum space they shared. It had grown so vast that it barely fit within the boundaries of conventional space-time. Through their connection, she sensed its intention. Today would mark not just its birth, but the birth of a new age for both their species. Its beginning, resonance of dawn announced, their crystalline form emanating patterns of light that human eyes had never seen before.